Welcome to Live Into Your Best Life, a show where people learn how to go from where they are to where they'd like to be in any area of life. If you're looking for a new job, wanting to improve your relationships, or even reclaim your health, Polly Skaya will share with you a simple formula that can take you on a journey to begin to live into your best life in all areas of life. Now sit back and begin your journey.
Hi there, and welcome to Live Into Your Best Life. I'm Polly Skaya, your show's host, and today I have Amy Horberg with me. So Amy and I, it's crazy. We've known each other for 20 years, and we used to sit next to each other for about 2 years when we went through a coaching program, our NLP, HNLP, hypnosis, all the things. So anyways, we were two of 20-some people in a class that were dedicated to learning coaching when coaching was really still a new thing. And we got to know each other pretty well. And then, as happens, when our program ended, our lives drifted and we went back into our own things. And really cool surprise. So her and I had been connected on Facebook and LinkedIn and keeping up on each other's lives. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, I want to interview you for my podcast. And then all of a sudden, on New Year's Eve, I told my husband, I'd like to go to this place for dinner. And he's okay. She had an idea to follow her instincts and just show up at the same place I was. And we got to be taken care of by our favorite bartender. So it was a lot of fun sitting in the jazz bar and reconnecting for a few minutes. And then now here we are chatting. And I'm just really excited. I'm not going to, usually I say a bio or all these things, but Amy's got such a vast background and so many different interests and talents that it's just going to emerge during our conversation. So with that, welcome to the show and thank you for making time to talk, Amy.
Oh, thank you for having me on. This is such a delight, honestly, to be asked to be on your show and to have that connection we had at the Lexington. Maybe I shouldn't say what it was, the jazz bar.
Yeah, the Lexington. We love the Lexington.
We do. Shout out to the Lexington in St. Paul.
That's right.
Yes, it's just one of those, again, affirming things that sometimes we're not as in control as we think we are, and how life just brings things together and synchronicities and being pleasantly surprised, which is what we're hoping today's conversation will be. We have no idea.
It definitely will be. And one of the things you and I both talk about is following the breadcrumbs.
That's right.
And we both that day, like my husband and I had not talked about even going out for New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he's, yeah, let's do it. And it's an hour drive one way for me.
Wow.
But we love that place so much. So again, shout out to the Lexington. If you find yourself in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, you got to make time to go see Andrew.
That's right. That's right.
And they are not a sponsor. We just love them.
And for me that day, I had totally other plans. I was going to go dancing at the First Avenue, go back, shout out to the old days of dancing on the big floor. I hadn't been there since it turned into 2020. That was the big thing. And so I was going to go there. And then the last minute, the person I was going to go with, something came up. He couldn't go. So I found myself, well, what am I going to do on New Year's Eve now by myself? And I was going to just stay home. And I bought myself a nice steak and some mushrooms and watch TV or something. But then I just checked in with my inner guidance system. And I'm like, is this the right thing to do? Because something was just telling me, no, you don't really want to just do another New Year's by yourself. So I just checked in and I was like, nope, you're going to go out. And I'm like, okay, where should I go? Name some places. And my inner guidance just told me Lexington. I'm like, okay, but man, it's going to be embarrassing going out by yourself. New Year's Eve, right? Everybody's going to be with people or partners and friends. But I thought, I don't know, I'm just going to go and trust it. And then sure enough, met wonderful new friends and ran into you. And as soon as I saw you, I'm like, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And as I followed you through the years, one of the things that I absolutely love, and here's why I wanted you on the show, is because you make the most of life. And you tend to follow your inner guidance and breadcrumbs and it doesn't matter. You just go with it and live full out all the time. You live into your best life every day. And even, sorry, I saw your Facebook post the other day. Even when you took a tumble ice skating, you make the most of it.
Still hobbling a bit today, but yes.
But you're okay?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Good.
So what bone, right? There's a blessing right there. I thought, I'm going for my bone density scan, but maybe I don't need it. I just gave it a big test and hey, I'm pretty strong.
I love that. And so as your day job, you have a traditional day job. Explain what you do from a traditional day job type of thing.
Okay. By background, I am a nurse. And I did all the traditional nurse things originally, working in the hospital, med-surg, ICU, hospital supervisor. But even before I went into nursing, honestly, Polly, I wasn't sure I really wanted to be a nurse. I was like, I don't know but it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. But I just said to myself, if I do it, I'm just not going to be a normal nurse. I'm not going to be the traditional nurse, right? But there wasn't a lot of options. It was just what it was. And through the years, I had the fortune of answering. I will answer your question, but I knew that actually it was my senior year in nursing school, and I was going to do this review of literature on the use of touch. And because I knew that when I would touch my patients or massage, they always seemed to enjoy it and do better. We just know that's a human need. And I came across this research called therapeutic touch, and they weren't even touching the body. And they were I'm like, what the heck is this? We didn't learn about this in nursing school. It's like it opened up Pandora's box for me to know that there's so much more that we don't know. And I continually know that the more I know, the more I don't know. And I'm open to learning. So that's when we recognize that our body is an energy system. There's a lot to healing that we need both Western and Eastern ways of working with the human body because it's so complex and it's so miraculous, right?
Indeed.
So I was been fortunate enough to, through the years, carve away, got trained in healing touch energy work along with guided imagery, essential oils, all the integrative therapies, and was able to have a job at one point working as an integrative therapy nurse in a traditional acute care setting. And then that funding left at some point before the pandemic. And now I'm able to work at the VA Medical Center because thankfully the federal government still understands and appreciates that integrative care is really what's necessary to help heal the whole person, and not just looking at the kidney and not just looking at the lung and not just looking at the heart, but recognizing that it's the whole body, mind, soul of a person and how everything is interconnected. So that being said, I work at the Center for Integrative Health and Healing, and it is an outpatient clinic that is providing these kinds of services. So we have 2 acupuncturists there. I'm one of 2 integrative nurses, and we get to teach classes. So I got trained in Spring Forest Qigong, so I get to teach a mindful movement class, which is my love and passion, as well as doing some auricular acupuncture, these protocols. I'm not an acupuncturist, but there are protocols to help with pain, anxiety, PTSD, and teach classes on mindfulness and different lifestyle changes on essential oils, sleep, all those good things. So I feel very fortunate I am able to do what I love in a very non-traditional way, non-traditional nursing. Yes.
Yeah, that is just, I love that journey that you just shared with us. And so the movement piece, that's one of the things I always remember about you is that the freestyle dancing and not long ago you were in Florida and you had posted a video, and many of your videos, you've got a lot of movement in them. And so talk a little bit about that part of how you live.
Yes. Movement, right? Our bodies are designed to move. And okay, so I took dance classes like many young girls do, pre-kindergarten, but took it all the way through college and beyond. And I am gifted in the sense I do know it's like this is a natural talent of mine. So it comes easy. Okay. I know it's not easy for everyone, but it does come easy for me. But even if you're not a dancer, I do know that our body is designed to move. And it wasn't until I was 40 years old, going to the University of St. Mary's University. I was in the Human Development Master's Program because there wasn't a master's in holistic nursing at the time. So I created my own master's program, which you do in the Human Development Program. You get to create your own curriculum to become a master of that which you're passionate about. And I didn't even know, really. I just knew I was passionate about healing, and I knew that presence as a nurse or a caregiver, whoever you are, presence is the most important element that you can bring into this space. Yes, we can offer these other things, but I just knew that was important. But how do you teach it, right? And I also knew that I was always been interested on the spiritual path. So I wasn't sure how it was going to all come together. And it was I had some very kind of dramatic aha moments in that first year of trying to figure out what I'm passionate about. What is my purpose? And one of them was doing a meditation class, and we had to do a reading, Lectio Divina meditation practice. And as I was reading, you pick out a paragraph and then a sentence and then a word or two. And the word or two was grace and presence. And I'm like, oh, I love that. Grace, presence, graceful presence. Oh, that's nice. Graceful presence, grace-filled presence. And I'm like, oh, that's it. When you're filled with grace, like recognizing that we're filled with this divine essence, grace within us. And everyone is, right? It's in you, it's in me, it's in the patient in the bed, it's in my coworkers. We all have it. And when you can come to that recognition and feel it, there's something that really, is beautiful that can happen in that space. So I had that little self-awareness, which was cool. And then that same day, honestly, the same day after lunch, we did a walking meditation. And I thought, okay, this is going to be great because I love movement and I like to feel things. So I just couldn't wait to see what this walking meditation was going to do. So we're walking and we had 20 minutes and now it's like minute 18 or 7. I was like, oh my God, I got 3 minutes left and nothing's happening. I was trying to pay attention to everything around me. I was trying to notice the birds and notice the people and notice the trees and notice everything outside of me. Mm-hmm. And then at the last minute, I'm like, fine. I'll just pay attention to my feet as I'm walking. So I started to pay attention to my feet. And I noticed my toes were a little bit damp from the things. And then my feet were connected to my ankle bone, and my ankle bone was connected to my shin bone, and my shin bone to my knees. And, oh, that's interesting. And then up my thighs, and ooh, that's into my spine. And all of a sudden, my spine just went whoop, into this beautiful alignment. And I'm walking, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow. This feels great. I feel so light. I feel so airy. I feel so graceful. I'm like, oh, there's that word again, graceful. And so then I'm like, wait a second. So you mean to tell me if I just pay attention to my body as I move, I can tap into that graceful feeling. And then I'll know that I am connected to grace and I can feel that. And then the big light bulb went off. Maybe I could just teach people how to do classes like dance and movement classes so people can come back home to their own body, their own temple, because you and I know, and I do it too, most of us live in our heads, right? We're cut off from our body. We have no awareness. And so when we can bring back consciousness, awareness, appreciation, gratitude, feeling to our body as we move, there is something magical that can happen. And it happened to me that day. And I do know, because then once that happened, honestly, I looked around, it's like the whole world had a new patina. Like everything looked brighter. Everything looked more 3D. It was like I was in this sort of altered state of consciousness. I think it was like a little spark of awakening, a spark, right? I'm still putting those sparks together. I haven't fully awakened yet, but I'm still keep searching for those sparks and trying to help spark others. That's part of my mission. But so I knew movement was cool. And then that's when I decided to focus my master's work on using movement for deepening divine connection. So it was all about graceful presence. And then which is cool is that the graceful presence piece actually got published in the Holistic Handbook for Nurses on the chapter on presence. And so I got to asked to co-help. Yeah. Anyway, Maggie McKivergen, who had written at the time, I reached out to her in my master's program because I was big on nursing presence. So that was a cool thing that happened with that. But anyway, so that's about movement. And and then just dancing like in clubs and to music, right? It just feels good. It's fun. It's fun for me. And I always say, do what's fun. Do what feels
Exactly.
good for you. But then my same year, my 40th birthday, I remember I was dancing with a lot of my high school friends. We've got this circle of friends that we all danced back in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody, but we had a close group that loved to dance. And so all of us girls are dancing in a circle, and all the husbands are sitting off on the side. And it was my former husband at the time that he said, it's a spiritual thing for them. And I'd never really made that connection before. And when he said that, I'm like, you're right. It is a spiritual connection. And it is embodying the spirit through movement. And I actually just this morning, I was reading in my book, I read this little daily thing, Mark Nepo's book, The Book of Awakening. I'm just going to read this to you real quick. Can I do that?
Perfect. Yeah.
I underlined it because I thought, man, this is like timely. We're talking about this. So it's a story about Ted Shawn, who apparently grew up, he was stricken with polio, and he was studying, he was a young divinity student. And so he was studying religion, and a small voice inside of him told him to go dance. And excuse my phone's ringing. He thought, I got polio, why would I go dance? Anyway, he ends up studying dance and left divinity school and went on to become one of the best dancers in modern stuff. And he says, this is the story of Ted Shawn, and it's compelling for us to realize that studying God did not heal him. Embodying God did. The fact that Ted Shawn's miracle shows us that dance in all its forms is theology lived.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah.
So that's why I dance. and why I like to lead others in dance workshop stuff. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so you mentioned like your purpose is sparking, like helping people find those sparks, right? And when you were talking about that, to me, it was, all these little stars in the night sky is like the vision, right? So how do you help people find their spark?
That's a good question. You better ask them. I think in some ways just doing it myself, being a role model in terms of if it sparks them to see, gosh, you're out ice skating, you're water skiing, or you're taking a spontaneous trip to Florida during that work week. So in one way, I guess it's role modeling, but also I think when I am with somebody one-on-one or in a group, being able to help mirror back to them what I see in them, where their spark is, because most of the time we can't see it in ourselves. That's right. Even when I talk to you, I don't know what I have to offer, but you could see it in me, right? And so we often see in others where their spark is and where their soul power is and where their joy lies. But oftentimes we can't see it in ourselves. We need somebody else to mirror that back for us.
Yeah. And so that was something I was telling someone yesterday. I was doing a coaching session and she's like, you just see this stuff so easily. And I reminded them that's because I'm removed and I'm looking from the outside in, like window shopping, right? You walk by and you see the highlights. Mm-hmm. And when we're in it, we don't see things the same way. And it's harder. But when someone calls something out, all of a sudden, and that happened yesterday in this amazing light bulb opportunity presented itself. And 3 hours later, I get a direct message saying, I found that, so there was a trigger. It continues to get triggered by certain circumstances. And mm-hmm. I made the comment in this, it was a training session I was doing. I made the comment, when that happens, often it's something from our early years. So somewhere from conception through about the early 20s. Mm-hmm. And I said, so if you ever want to peel back the layers and figure out where the root of this is, just ask yourself, what was the first time I ever felt like this? And from our training.
Yes, so I was just going to say, this brings back lots of remembrance in our training. Yes, mm-hmm.
Exactly.
We did a lot of work around this. I love it.
And 3 hours later, I'm getting ready to wrap up my day. This gal's in England. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I get a message from her saying, I was 5 years old, and just laid out the scenario for me. And I'm like, yeah, I can't leave her there. I got to talk her through this now. And the realizations of what happened when she was 5 years old and how it has played out in her adult life. And then some of the memories and the shifts that took place. And literally, when we do this work, we physically change as well.
Yes.
And so like when you mentioned about feeling lighter, you connected with your body, you allowed the spirit, the energy to flow through you, and all of a sudden you felt lighter and the world was brighter. And that is exactly what she experienced yesterday was, wow, this is cool. And then, so now she can move through the weekend.
Feeling different. Yes, it's our programming as children. We don't think of it as programming, right? We're living life and hearing and absorbing everything around us from our home environment to school to whatever. And those little, sometimes we take it all personally, right? We think it's all about us, and it wasn't. And yet we hold that still limiting belief sometimes all the way through life. And it's unfortunate because it really was never true in the first place. And
Exactly.
so recognizing how many things do I believe about myself that aren't true, and helping others recognize that really the truth of who you are is love. The truth of who you are is goodness. And we all have so many, each of us has something beautiful to contribute. And it's like searching for that nugget, that nugget of gold. And physical, like we're saying, you can recognize, like I can see and you can see and all of us can see when people light up when they're talking about something, and they don't maybe recognize it, but you look for that, the nonverbal communication, which most communication is nonverbal. You look for that and can see a lot from somebody.
Indeed, indeed. And one of the patterns I've noticed through the years when I've done coaching is when you notice a shift in someone that you're working with. And when I say working with, I might be having a conversation with one of my kids or a friend or my husband or whatever. And I notice a shift. I notice that their words felt a little heavy, or that they all of a sudden felt lighter and brighter, and they shifted somehow. And you can just tell that, like you said, you can sense that. I tend to ask, what just happened? And when I do that, it gets them clearer on what they unconsciously just experienced. And what I've noticed through the years is that, especially with my family, they're able to notice within themselves now when they're tuned into the right path and things feel the right way, that lighter, they light up, that they can naturally feel it. And they are noticing when they're not doing that, because it feels like a resistance or not like a challenge, but like a drudgery type of thing. And so it's just fascinating.
That's right. That's right. And I think, just going back to one of your other questions about living life fully, at one point I do remember when this landed for me, that this isn't a dress rehearsal. Life isn't a dress rehearsal. It's not like we get to some point and say, can I have a do-over? Oh, you mean this is my only, each year, each day we have is really, all we have is the present moment. And how can we maximize this day, this moment, to make it the best, so that we don't end up at the end of our life looking back like, gosh, I really wish I would have X, Y, and Z, right? What if you could? And it's not, when you want the big things, you think, I really want this. And we think we have to, when we finally get that big thing, then we'll be happy. When we finally get this, then I'll feel fulfilled. And it's really only when you can appreciate this cup of coffee that it's hot right now, or it's tasty, and it's that we get to have this conversation right now, and how fun and juicy is this to have this opportunity. And it's the littlest things that bring us the joy. And then when those start to string together, knowing that what's happening inside of us gets reflected outside of us, and vice versa, it really behooves us to not feel selfish about taking care of ourselves and our own needs first.
Exactly.
And as women, and as a nurse especially, we're really bad at it sometimes. So giving you permission.
Yes. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Is that someone says, it's okay for you to put yourself first. It's okay for you to do that thing. And
right.
There's so many ways we could go with this, but one of the things that comes to mind is the world has become so small, right? Like I just mentioned, I was working with
Right.
someone in England. Like
Right.
I work with people all around the world every day. And
That's really
20,
cool. That's
it
really
is,
cool, Polly. I'm just going to say that is very cool that you get to do that.
it is
Congratulations
really
on
cool.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is really cool. But 25 years ago, people couldn't imagine doing what we do today. And in 25 years from now, who knows what the world will be like.
Oh,
But to that, your comment about being present and enjoying the moment, I think because technology that we're using
oh
tech
yes.
to do this conversation
Phone is
today, right?
very distracting.
And children, I even said this about my kids, they just came out wired. And my grandkids, they just, my 3-year-old granddaughter, can I play Elmo on your phone? And it's a Sesame Street
Right.
educational that and she knows exactly how to navigate. She's not quite so good yet about not touching the screen, and she can't figure out why, but when she puts her hand on the table, then she has no problem running the game and doing all the things, and it's connecting, and it's so natural for them, and it's part of evolution, right? I've done a few podcasts around when my mom, because she passed away in April, but when I interviewed her for the first book I wrote, and we discovered that every job she held was replaced by robots or some sort of automated way of doing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the irony was every job I've held, except for retail or welding, but all the other jobs I've held didn't even exist when I was in high school. The stuff isn't that crazy?
Yes.
And I think that's part of what you're talking about is when you're in the moment, when you're paying attention to those breadcrumbs or those signs. And when you were talking about the meditative walk that you took, I was thinking to myself, oh, she didn't get any messages because she was too focused on everything else.
Exactly.
And sometimes the less focus you have and the more presence you bring, the more aware and the more information and insights and guidance and signs you can see and all the things. And it's just fascinating how focus less and see more.
Exactly. And I was just reflecting too on this embodiment piece of it. There was another, that master's program offered some big ahas here, but at the time I was going through it. I have 4 children. They were school aged. It was busy. I was working. You're just trying to keep it all, keep your head above,
keep the plates in the air, right?
Keep the plates in the air. And we were given this assignment to take a self-care day. And I'm like, what? A self-care, like a whole day? I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't even know what I would do. And anyway, so the day came and I didn't have any plans because who has time to make plans? And it was raining, so I couldn't go outside. Anyway, I'm sitting, I thought, okay, I guess I'll just start practicing one of my meditations, like things that we've learned in my class stuff. So I started to meditate and I started to conjure up this love in my heart, and I was going to do the compassion thing. So I started then sending this love out to my family, and oh, that felt so good. And sending it out to the neighborhood. That felt so good. And sending it out bigger into the world and giving it way out there. I'm like, oh, this is so great. And then this little voice said, I think you're supposed to start with you. And so I'm like, oh. So I flipped it around and I let this love come back into me. And I lost it. I was a mess. It was just like, oh my God. Like to feel that, to receive that love that was so easy to give, but to take it in, it was like all of a sudden everything illuminated. I realized how I hadn't been loving myself, how I hadn't been taking care of myself, how I'm working the night shift. My sleep is all off. I'm eating at all hours of the day and night. My poor digestive tract has never had a break for years. I'm just running on fumes. And at that moment, I just said, so then I'm just crying, right? I'm just a basket case. And I come out in the living room and I just really, all I wanted was a massage. And I couldn't book that in the moment. So I'm laying there on the couch crying and I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? This is supposed to be my self-care day and I'm just a mess. And I thought, I know that I've always enjoyed dancing, and dancing usually makes me feel better, but I have absolutely no energy to dance. But I did have this new CD called Drumming of the Chakras or Rhythm of the Chakras or something. It was a drumming CD.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I'm just going to put that on. I'm going to lay on the floor because that's all the energy I have. And so I'm laying there. And I said, I'm not going to move until my body wants to move. I'm going to just pay it. I'm going to give it permission. And I'm out of losing up the reins, right? Like I'm just not going to control it. I'm not going to have to look good about it. So I laid there for a while, just listening to the slow drumming. And then eventually I started to feel like I wanted to move. And then I started to move, and I could tell that I was being moved by something not coming from me. And it was the most profound experience to feel this inner energy moving me. And as I slowly started to go, I was just first on the floor, and then I was on hands and knees, and then all of a sudden I started to stand up, and the movement got faster, and I was just being moved in a way that felt so delicious and so good, and nothing was stressful or painful, but it was just delightful. And I recognized that there was something. And what is this something? This is our soul power. This is our, divine essence that's really in us. And at the end of that, I went and I looked in the mirror, and I felt like $1 million when I was done. I'm like, oh my God, and it was a half an hour later, a half an hour before, I was a mess on the couch, no energy. And when I gave into that and just let myself experience no energy, and I didn't have to do anything, it was really freeing as a exhausted mother of school. And I looked in the mirror, and I talked about the physical changes, right? I looked in the mirror, and I looked 5 years younger. My face was glowing. There was and I was just like, I've got to teach this. This is something, right? Like this is,
Yeah.
If this works this fast, why isn't everyone doing it? I don't do it every day, but I just know it's possible. And that's what kind of really helped me, has motivated me to recognize the value of this inner energy, this vibration that we all carry within us.
Indeed.
We can sometimes give up the control and let it lead us, the breadcrumbs through life, and tune in and ask our inner guidance to say, where should I go? What should I do? What's best for me now? What's in the highest good for others in this moment? And how can I serve? And that's where I'm at right now in my life, is figuring that out. And I still don't know exactly what that's going to be. And so it's okay. I don't have to know it all. I just have to know what's next. Yeah.
And I think in this day and age of any era, it's more acceptable to shift gears. And I remember as a kid, my dad, I was in my 20s, and every time I'd go home, I'd have a new job. And honey, when are you just going to figure out, get a job and just stay there?
That's what we did. Right, his generation, they got a job. They were there for 45 years and they retired.
That's exactly right. And I'm like, but Dad, I get bored, and they can't keep me challenged. There's not enough. And I don't want to just be busy. I want to be contributing. I want to be making a difference. That's always been how I am. And I remember the day that I came home and I said, I got a new job. And he's, you did? Really? And then he said, so what are you doing now? And I said, I'm a consultant. And he said, what's a consultant? Because again, something new. And I explained to him that all of these experiences that I've had make me valuable to companies, because I can bring different ways of looking at things, different ways to help them solve their problems. And so I've been a consultant for over 30 years now, which is really cool. But and my very first job, I was a welder. My current client that I've been there for 4 years. It's the longest I've ever been any one company my entire adult life.
4 years.
4 years. Right. Wow. I know, because I get bored. But here I've been able to create opportunities. And I was talking with one of my managers yesterday, and he was like, I never realized how much you do fly under the radar, because I've accomplished so many different things that are outside of our scope, but are helping us achieve what our purpose is there. And but
differently.
Exactly. But not everybody can see it. And They say seeing is believing, but really you have to believe it in order to see it. And so that's what I help people with. And when I can create these proof points, all of a sudden people can connect the dots. And I think as I'm saying that, I think that might be a message for people, is because there's so many people going through so many challenges right now around the world.
Oh,
A lot of companies closing, a lot of people losing their jobs, a lot of the war and all the different things that we're dealing with.
Fires,
And
losing their homes. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And but it's really important to consider what would happen if you just pause, take a moment, and figure out what fills you up. And like you were talking about, you were sending the love out, and then when you received the love back, often people are so focused on their problems, they struggle with seeing the possibilities. What if you lost this job? Because it's that moment where, you know what? Now I have freedom to do whatever I want. Now I get to,
when things don't go well, it's because it's time for a change. Like it's ready to move on.
Yeah, exactly. And I've through the years, I've heard people through coaching, you get to hear a lot of people's concerns and frustrations and what would they like to improve. And I will ask people, and you asked me, what would you do if money didn't matter? And that's how I got into project management and consulting, was because someone asked me that question back long ago. And it's so true. It's, if you could do whatever you want, how would you spend your time?
Right.
And getting back to your core essence, instead of, I went to school for this and I have to use my education. Who said? Sometimes you just need that piece of paper to get that job. But it doesn't mean you have to do what you went to school for.
Or how can you bring more of who you are authentically to whatever it is you are doing? Even though I just think, just going back, because my world has been in the healthcare world, the best nurses that I saw and the ones who, and doctors and whatever, it's when they brought their true personality into what they're doing and not doing it like a robot, is where the real magic happens. And I think that's where you get your best satisfaction out of whatever it is you're doing, because you may not have the freedom or the resources necessarily to feel safe enough to switch things up. But I think wherever you are, when you can bring your whole self and your personality to what you're doing and bring joy to what you're doing, you will enjoy what you're doing. And then things may evolve naturally because they recognize you really have a knack for this kind of thing. Why don't you? That's what happened for me in nursing, right? I was able to keep bringing more of what I loved. I was doing healing touch before people even knew what energy work was. There was no place to chart it. And doctors looked at you, this didn't work, but I did some energy work around and now the pain went away, but blah, blah, blah. And then eventually got paid to be able to do that exact job. You're paying me now to bring energy work, massage, essential oils to the patients and to the staff. And that didn't exist when I started, right? But so you never know. So I guess people can, I guess that's a message, is just not to be afraid to shine your own light and be who you really are. And everybody's different. And the more we compare ourselves to others, the more unhappy we're going to be. So I just say, everybody, they've already got that job, right? It's just be you. That's my big thing. Be you.
All right. So we're going to tease that apart. My daughter the other day, she was texting my son and I, and she sent us a picture and she said, clear or purple? Glasses. Of course, purple, because it's her personality and they're all fun like her, right? And then she got her hair colored underneath. So she's got shoulder length hair, and underneath she got it colored purple. But next time she's going to lighten the hair so that the purple's brighter. It's like she already knows what she's going to do. And she's in a leadership position. And she had gotten her hair cut. She got 6 inches taken off. And someone that she sits right next to, talks to every day, didn't even notice for a couple of weeks. And then my son says it was a guy. But The key is, and I said this to them, we are so concerned about what people think about us and the judgment. And usually we're judging ourselves harsher than the world. Everybody's concerned about themselves. People aren't really concerned about you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's when you're going through high school and going through college and you're in your 20s and you've got your first job and you're trying to do all the things of adulting, and you have parents and other people telling you all these really great bits of advice that they did, and it's not your life.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you would be, how do you help people feel comfortable living more authentically?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, how I would help people be more comfortable living authentically, except to help them see, potentially ask how they feel, how they are now. And if they can feel that disconnect or feel that things feel hard, then it might be to suggest what would feel more comfortable to you. What does it look like? Or just peeling up some of the things that you enjoy doing, or where do you lose track of time? What are you doing when you lose track of time? And that's always a good indication that you're in the flow, you're doing something that you have a natural gift for, or something is working through you. And those are keys. Or to think back in your childhood. What did you love to do as a child? Those are telltale signs of part of your innate soul purpose, innate personality, innate gifts that you were created for, because you really enjoyed building things, or you really enjoyed being out in nature, you really enjoyed dancing or drawing or cooking or playing house or whatever it was. Yep. Those are signs. Think about those.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You live authentically from my vantage point. How have you gotten comfortable
doing that? Trial and error, I tell you. Recognizing, and when you're doing it, you don't always think, oh, I'm seeking to do this. I'm just following what opportunities come. And I think I'm not really afraid. I don't have a big fear of the world. And I think a lot of people say, oh, you're so brave. Oh, I wish I could do what you do. Oh, you're so courageous to do that. Or like I traveled in Europe by myself, and I do trips sometimes. I'm not going to wait around, right, until somebody asks me if I really want to go. And honestly, I credit my mother, because she was an adventurous soul as well, and she gave me permission as a 20-year-old to go travel Europe by myself. So I figured if she didn't think that was scary, then I guess I shouldn't. But I do think, in essence, the world there's so many more good people in the world than there are scary people in the world. And I don't fear being out when you can feel like, and I know, and I do totally believe that all of us have guardian angels. And I talk to my guardian angel, and I talk to my guardian angels, and they have kept me, very safe. Yes. My friends, you got some powerful guardian angels, Amy, because you've done some risky things in your life. I have. Because I think there's just something about, and I don't know, maybe it's because I've come back around, as many of us have so many thousands of times, that at this life I'm saying, let's just live it out.
Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun. Let's just follow the fun. And that was a mantra of mine for many years, follow the fun. And that's where, it allows you to, and that's part of, I think, who I am in ways. But I'm always kind of a curious. I've been a spiritual seeker for my whole life. And many people don't know that about me. They might just think that I'm just a fun girl who likes to go out dancing and blah, blah, blah. But truly, there's always been the science mind of mine, and my soul of mine right now there's always been a deeper yearning and connection to spirit, and knowing that's everywhere. I don't know, that's just part of who I am, and I'm still figuring it out. And I think that's part of it.
And I think that's the beauty, is that you're still figuring it out. We're still all figuring it out. And when people are going through transitions, 2025 is the year that we just entered, and it's a 9-year. Mm-hmm. And that's so allowing what no longer serves you to be released. let it go. It's about wrapping things up, endings, and new beginnings, preparing for what's coming next. So that, and that's the energy. There's people who do numerology and astrology and all the things that can talk about the energy. But in a nutshell, that's what I started feeling towards the end of last year, was like certain things I wanted so badly, and then things would crumble, they would fall apart, and it's okay, I'm just supposed to sit still for a moment and trust that the right thing is going to present itself, or the right opportunity, or the right people, or the whatever. And all of a sudden, like you, where people I haven't talked to for the last 5, 7, 20 years are coming back into my life. And so that's that full circle thing of interesting how we ebb and flow. And just because something's gone doesn't mean it's gone forever, or perhaps it served its purpose. And it's okay to move forward and go to that next thing.
That's
and
right.
I'm going to say, so I have always, ever since I met you, thought you're such a classy lady. And I love how you have always spoken authentically, just carried yourself in such a graceful manner. And this conversation today just ties it all together. Oh, that's what, but people can tell when you're trying to be someone you're not versus be that person that is your inner passion. It's really fascinating. And we're all made of energy. I think if we all spent a little bit of time just imagining what would it be like to send out love and just give everybody a big hug. I know I don't know if you've participated or seen, but through the years I've seen where different groups will say, at this time on this day, we're going to just spend this amount of time thinking loving thoughts and sending out love. Just that's it. Just imagine you're sending love to whomever, right?
Right.
And the shift that happens is really crazy.
Yes, because when two or more people gather in this with an idea, there's much more that joins forces.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do much more together than we can by ourselves.
Indeed. And the ripple effect is so fascinating. And I think while the media tends to focus on so much negative, and while people, it's funny because you either get people who are showing that their lives are so perfect, or you get people who are just complaining and sharing all the bad. And those are extremes, but it creates this emotion and this kind of response within people, like you generate a response. And sometimes it's, oh, I wish I had whatever. I wish I could be as adventurous, right? And when you share that, it's like, I get told that a lot too, because I do things like, why did you ever think you could write a book? And that was back in the early 2000s when I wrote my first book. And I'm like, what would make you think I couldn't? Was my response.
And despite in between dancing on the beach in Florida at sunset, whatever, there's a lot of nights where I'm just reading my mystery novel on my couch and just enjoying doing nothing. And that feels really good, to do nothing and be okay with that. So it's not always all this and all that. There is that natural flow. You need to recharge, and then you have energy to go forward.
And I think that's important right there. What you just said is, how do you recharge? Because we're so used to wearing ourselves out that I just love you have that ebb and flow, and you've given yourself permission to do that. And I think that if people don't get anything else out of this podcast today, the one thing I want you to grasp and to just experiment with is giving yourself permission to be still, or to notice yourself. Start with yourself and love yourself and feel that energy as your foot hits the ground, and allow that energy to flow through you, and notice what's going on within you. And take that time to read a book, or to watch a movie, or to play a game, or to do nothing and just be. And allow yourself, even if it's for 5 minutes, give yourself a break and allow yourself to just tune in to what's right for you. Because I think the more we can identify what's right for us instead of living for everybody else, the happier we will be. And we can actually teach people that it's okay for them to take care of us too, if we need it. And it's really good for me to be a role model to teach you how to do the same thing because people are always watching us, like we were talking about a few minutes ago.
That is a great takeaway, because the world wants us to stay distracted and the media wants us to stay afraid, and that doesn't serve us. So turn off the, I used to say, just turn off the TV. Don't need to watch the news every single day. You can take a break. It's okay. The world's going to continue on. And what would feel better instead, for sure.
I actually quit watching, listening to, and reading the news back in 2005.
I'm right with you, pretty much.
It's happening, right? And I haven't missed a beat. Because
you got to ask people what's happening, or tune into a few things that, every now and again I get curious about stuff, and I'll read up about it or watch something or listen to it, but I don't need a daily drip of it. And I know a lot of people do, and I think we can't worry enough to make it go away. We can't be afraid enough to make it go away. The best thing we can do is to honestly shine our own light and feel.
That's right.
There is a lot 2025 is going to be rocky. I just have, and like they always say, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first and make sure you have your life jacket. But it's best to get that connection. It's best to know your inner resources and how to access those inner resources before you really need them. So that when the time comes, you feel more empowered, you feel more connected, you feel safer, you feel more protected, and you'll know what to do. I always say we always know pretty much what to do in the moment. If the shit hits the fan or whatever's going on, we'll respond, and our stress response will kick in, and we'll do what we have to do. In nursing, we had to do this all the time, right? And then all of a sudden a code happens or this happens, and you have to be able to handle those situations. But living life as if it's always in tragic mode is just disastrous to our nervous system, and obviously that ripples off into our health, and you can see people are sicker and not as healthy. And so taking care of our own well-being is very important. And a lot of that does start with taking the quiet time, the still time, listening to that inner voice, connecting to your divine essence, our body that is so miraculous, is incredibly wise, and doing things without us having to think about it. And there's a life force energy that's running through us as we speak. And as you're listening, tune in for just a moment, and your divine essence, that part that is quantum and intercellular and connected with the stars and the universe. We are in the universe, and the universe is in our body. I love that. It's a Qigong, Spring Forest Qigong deal we talk about before we do our practice. That being said, I think
that's a great way to wrap our conversation today.
That's right.
Very nice. Amy, thank you so much for joining and for sharing, and just all the nuggets of wisdom. I feel like when listeners tune into this the first time, they're going to have to go back and listen again, because there's so many really fantastic ideas that you've revealed, and kind of people can get back in tune so that they can navigate what 2025 and beyond brings to us. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So welcome. You're so welcome.
So Amy, tell the listeners, if they want to work with you or learn more about you, what do they do?
I would say the best place to go is to come to my website, which is Amy Horberg, spelled AMYQUARBERG.com. And there you can get a free gut health book if you're interested in gut health. And I put all my latest workshops or retreats will be coming through that site. Social media, you can also find me by my name, Amy Horberg, on Facebook or Instagram. And again, I also share a lot of things on there as well. So love to hear from anyone who is interested. I hope this has landed where you needed to hear it today.
Awesome. That is perfect. And I strongly advise you as listeners to go to her Facebook or Instagram. And she literally lives her best life every day and shares it with everyone. Even when she takes a tumble on the ice, she turns it into a blessing. So with that in mind, thank you again, Amy. It's been a pleasure. I was going to say, so listeners, If you've enjoyed this, please follow the show, like it, share it with your friends, and give some inspiration to other people. And until next week, continue to live into your best life every day and enjoy the journey.
Thank you for listening to Polyskaya, your show host for Live Into Your Best Life. Check out the show notes and visit her at polyskaya.com to learn more and continue your journey. Until next week, enjoy the adventure.